Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today I just wanted to do a quick fun little video and share with you my little crystal skull tribe. Now, I'm not really an expert on working with crystal skulls, but I thought I would just share mine, kind of introduce you to them. I have shown them before many times on my channel, but I thought I would just introduce you to each of them and talk a little bit about how I work with each one, because each one kind of does have a specific job, so to speak, in my practice, or a specific place that it supports me in the work that I do. I guess we'll just start on this side and work our way this way. This is my oldest crystal skull that I have, and this one, his name is Poe, and Poe is amethyst. And this has been the crystal skull that I have worked with primarily during the darker new moon, and that has coincided a lot with my work with Hecate. But to be perfectly honest, I don't, ever since I got one of my newer crystal skulls, I haven't been using Poe as much for specific Hecate work, but more for working just with moon energy, specifically the new moon or the dark to new moon energy. And so he's definitely one that comes and hangs out with me. And basically what this means, or how this works for me, is that I incorporate Poe or any one of my crystal skulls for the most part, like on my sacred space or in my sacred space when I'm doing that particular work. And so for Poe, when I'm doing my new moon readings and things of that nature, or any workings that I'm doing during that time, I bring Poe along, and Poe kind of acts as like a support, right? Kind of like a friend who comes and hangs out with me and just lends me his energy and his support while I'm doing those workings. And that's kind of in general how I work with all my skulls. They kind of work like crystals in a sense, right? Like just normal crystals. But how I interact with them is more like they're little people, kind of. They're little energies or little personalities in and of themselves. And to me, they do feel very much like they have their own unique little personalities. And I kind of address them as such. I totally personify them. I also personify my deck, so it's not like any real big surprise that I would personify something that has like a face. And I think that's part of the reason why we, or me personally, but why we connect to, or some of us connect to, the idea of crystal skulls, because it's human nature to sort of personify things for most people, and we like to kind of make that connection. So we like to humanize things because it helps us to understand them, I think. And by sort of humanizing and giving a personality, a face and a personality to each of these crystals and the work that I do with them, it allows me to kind of tap into that energy and connect with it on a little bit more of a deeper level than I would say just like a piece of other kind of crystal, right? To me, this kind of does the same thing, but it doesn't have the same sort of personality or energy. This to me would just be something that I would use to kind of focus, or maybe like this tiger's eye here, I might bring this out and handle it and work with it whenever I need kind of some protective energy. These kind of, my skulls kind of do similar in a sense that they kind of have the energy of their crystal, but they also have a bit of their own kind of feel and personality. Like these are both amethyst, for example. This is Plath, by the way. And these are both amethyst, but they both have very different energies to me. The same with these two, because these are both moss agate, but they have completely different energies to me, and they feel like completely different little personalities, so to speak, which is kind of why I think I personify them. Also because like they have a face, right? Anything that has a face, I want to like give a name to, and I want to address as a little entity or personality. Tarot cards, right? They have lots of faces in them, but I do personify them as kind of like an energetic whole in terms of their personality, but that's a totally different video for a different time. But anyway, this is Plath, and I love her markings across her face. She's almost broken, which I think is very, very fitting for her. She's not broken. That's the thing though. She looks broken, but she's actually not. There's no actual breakage there in the crystal. It's just the way the striations are makes her appear kind of broken. And she kind of assists me with a lot of different type of work here and there, but a lot of times I find that she comes out when I'm doing kind of shadow type work, or when I'm working on the pieces of myself that I kind of feel like are broken in a sense, right? I mean, I don't feel like I'm broken, but I definitely have things that I need to be working on and things that are, yeah, I mean, a little bit broken, right? There, it's not perfect. So a lot of times Plath comes out and works with me and hangs out with me while I'm doing that kind of work. And then I'm going to jump over here because these are my two newest. So this is Rose. And again, I know I've introduced these four on my channel a couple of different times. And Rose is Rose Quartz. I know, super original name, which I think I said in my cliche video too. But this is the crystal skull that I use whenever I'm working with Mother Mary. And so because I associate roses with Mother Mary and the fact that she's a rose quartz, it just felt like a really, really fitting name for her. She has a very soft, gentle energy. Oftentimes when I'm feeling a little bit out of sorts, I will come and I will just handle her and I will hold her, and it kind of makes me feel better. Oftentimes I'll do that and I'll say like a little prayer to Mary. I feel like she's a little bit of a conduit, so to speak, between me and Mary. Sometimes she acts as an intermediary, a guide kind of in that type of work. And I mean, I do want to say that I don't think these are actual real people, right? I'm totally personifying the energy and the work that I do with these particular crystals. I don't think they're actual beings. I have heard from, you know, several different sources that there is a theory that crystal skulls can have actual souls or entities or energies that are very specific beings attached to them. I don't feel that any of mine do. For one, they're all probably mass produced. I don't think any of these are handmade, right? I think they're all just kind of like mass produced type of skulls. I do try to get them from responsible, ethical sources when I'm aware of that. But they're mass produced, so I don't feel like they actually have any kind of a entity attached to them. It's just more of me personifying the work that I do with them and the kind of energy that I perceive in the crystal itself and the work I do with the crystal. So hopefully that makes sense. This is Sunny, and Sunny is citrine, and Sunny is often the skull that I use a lot of times like a little fidget a little fidget tool, because he hangs out on my working desk, like by my computer, and I spend a lot of time with him in my hands, just kind of holding him and playing with him while I'm editing. I know I've mentioned that before too, because my right hand's over here on my mouse and Sunny's hanging out in my left hand, just kind of, I don't know, doing his thing. I feel like he I don't know, lends me some creative energy. A lot of times when I'm doing like creative work or creative projects, I will pull Sunny over and just kind of set him on my desk, and he just kind of hangs out with me. He's got a kind of similar striation across his face as Plath does. And he's got this like dark spot at his base. I am not a crystal expert by any means, so I don't know if there's like actual terminology for all this kind of stuff. I just get the skulls that call to me. That's really all it is. I don't, on a very rare occasion, I will seek out particular crystal. So I specifically sought out citrine for creative work and ended up with Sunny, and specifically sought out rose quartz for my work with Mary and ended up with Rose. So those two I specifically sought out that particular crystal for those skulls to connect to those works. Then my two newest ones here are these two, and they are both moss agate. They have very different looks and very different energies. And this guy, I'm so original with my names. His name is Moss, and I tried and tried and tried to give him a different name, and it just like wouldn't click. Anytime I'd come up with a different name, I would immediately like in my mind or in my reference to this particular skull, would end up saying moss. So moss it is. And I'm not going to fight him on it. That's what he wants to be called. Anyway, he's pretty cool. Again, he's moss agate. And this particular crystal, I saw him first and I just kind of knew that I had to have him. It was just a thing. I do not remember, actually the shop that I got these two from is no longer in existence. These two I got at a local shop, which I'm not sure is actually around anymore. And these two I ordered from Moondrop Stones, I think. I will leave a link for that in the description box below, or whatever it actually is. I think that's close, but anyway, he's got a little bit of an overbite, but you see what I mean? Like I don't know, maybe you don't, but I feel like each of them have their little personality. But moss has been hanging out with me in my Hecate work, which is quite interesting because, as I mentioned, Poe was kind of filling space for that. But I don't know, and I feel like it didn't really ever quite click with him, right? He would come and he would hang out, but it didn't really feel like a huge connection or draw. And I feel like I was just waiting for Moss to get here. I know I probably sound like a crazy person, but that's okay. It makes me happy. So this is what we're doing because it makes me happy. And I want to share things that make me happy. So anyway, I got Moss, and Moss ended up wanting to be on my Hecate altar, and he has been joining me for my Hecate work, which he feels very primal to me, which is very much in alignment with how I see Hecate and how I work with Hecate. So very, very primal, very instinctual, and I love that there's like, if you look inside, there's all kinds of things and details going on in the shadows here, which again, I think is very, very fitting for Hecate work. So this is my other new one. And this one, again, is another moss agate, which I think is so cool. It has got a lot of texture and stuff in the skull area. There's the different striations. I know there's a name for that, but I can't remember what it is. We've got this big white, kind of light colored spot, and then it's kind of like a half and half thing. This particular skull doesn't have a name yet, and it will let me know when there's a name that's gonna work for it, but right now this skull is kind of sitting in my ancestor space, and because it feels like it has very much a grandmother ancestor energy. And so that is what I'm going to be using this skull for, is to just kind of help me cultivate sacred space and connect to ancestor energy, because that's just the kind of energy and the feel that it has. It just feels very grandmothery. And yeah, I really am looking forward to working with that one. Again, doesn't have a name yet, but we'll figure it out. Ash keeps coming in and asking me, do you have a name for that one yet? And I'm like, nope, not yet. Anyway, another thing that I've noticed just real quick about the way I purchase my skulls, I always buy them in pairs, and you can see the pairs here. And the other thing that's really interesting, in addition to the fact that I, totally personify them and I give them names and they have like little stories and energies and whatnot in my practice, I also always buy them in pairs. They always seem to have a male-female energy to me when I get them. So we have Poe that feels very masculine, and Plath to balance him out with the feminine. We have Sunny, which is masculine, and Rose, which is feminine. We have Moss, which is masculine, and then the grandmother one, the ancestor crystal, has a very feminine energy. So I just thought it was really interesting that I always buy them in pairs. I cannot seem to buy one skull by itself. It's like they kind of have to come together, and they have to be a partnership in my practice. I don't know. Again, I sound probably completely nuts. I really don't think I am, but to each their own. But anyway, I just thought that was really interesting because I always buy them in pairs, and it always seems to be a masculine feminine pairing in the two skulls that I buy, and I don't go into the purchase with that intention. In fact, I went into this purchase with the intention of just buying this one, and then saw this one from the same shop, and it's just like there's something about that one that's just calling to me. It feels very ancestral, and so I wanted to go ahead and snag that one while I could too. So it's just really interesting, I think, to me, how I interact with them and how I work with them. I just kind of set them in my space, or I hold them, or, you know, I use them to connect to the energy of whatever it is that I'm trying to cultivate, or the energy that I need to tap into. And it's really just kind of a fun, interesting little tidbit in my practice. It's kind of similar to like, if in my opinion, it's pretty similar to like when I light specific candles or I use specific crystals, right? It's the same kind of thing. But these little guys each have their own little face and their own little story and their own little energy, and I do feel that very much when I pick them up and I hold them and work with them. So that's just a little introduction to my crystal skull tribe here, my little growing family. I do have 2 more on order, but they are coming from the other side of the world, so I have no idea when they're gonna get here. Again, I bought a pair, and they do both, already I can just tell from looking at the pictures, have a masculine and feminine energy to each of them. So I'm sticking with my tried and true here, apparently. But anyway, that's a little look at my crystal skull family and how I use them a little bit, what I use them all for. So I would love to know, like, if you work with crystal skulls, what your experience is. If you have any really good resources about, you know, the proper way, I guess, so to speak, to work with crystal skulls, I would love to know. So feel free to share that with me in the comments below. I'd love to know if you have crystal skulls, how you work with them. If you think I'm totally off my rocker, that's totally cool too. These little guys totally make me happy, and so they bring me comfort and joy. And so I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.